When you hear about Iran and the United States today, you almost always hear one word: nuclear. It's on every cable news chyron, in every diplomatic briefing, woven into every campaign speech. The nuclear file, Iran's bomb, the deal, the collapse of the deal, the next deal. But how much of that is real risk, and how much is politics, spin, and storytelling aimed at their own people? To answer that, we need to pull this thing apart, layer by layer. Forget the jargon for a second. The nuclear file is basically the world asking, is Iran building power plants, or is it quietly building the option for a bomb? That's the core of it. Iran has a nuclear program. It enriches uranium. It operates centrifuges. And under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, it's allowed to do that for civilian energy. The problem is that the same technology that powers a reactor can, with enough enrichment, produce weapons-grade material. And that's where the inspections come in. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, monitors Iran's facilities, checks its stockpiles, and tries to verify that nothing is being diverted. But monitoring has limits. Access gets restricted. Questions go unanswered. And every time there's a gap, the international community has to decide, is this a technical dispute, or is it something more dangerous? Now here's where history bends the whole conversation. In 1953, the CIA and British intelligence helped overthrow Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. That installed the Shah, a leader friendly to the West but deeply resented at home. When the Shah fell in 1979 and the Islamic Revolution swept in, Iran found itself isolated almost overnight. Then came the Iran-Iraq War, 8 brutal years, and the United States backed Iraq, supplied intelligence, looked the other way on chemical weapons. Iran lost hundreds of thousands of people, and the lesson it drew was stark. No one is coming to help us. We need our own insurance policy. For Tehran, the nuclear program is about never being as vulnerable as Mossadegh was in 1953. For Washington, it's about never again being as humiliated and blindsided as it felt in 1979. That hostage crisis, 444 days of American diplomats held captive, burned itself into the American political psyche. After that, any Iranian capability that could shift the balance of power became, in Washington's eyes, unacceptable. So let's be honest about the stakes. If Iran were to develop a nuclear weapon, or even get close enough that its neighbors believed it had, the consequences ripple far beyond Tehran. Saudi Arabia has already signaled it would pursue its own program. Turkey and Egypt would face enormous pressure to follow. A nuclear arms race in one of the most volatile regions on Earth is not a theoretical risk. It's the scenario that keeps non-proliferation experts up at night. There's also the miscalculation factor. In a region with active proxy wars, contested borders, and deep sectarian fault lines, even the perception of a nuclear capability changes how every actor behaves. There is real danger here. Not just what Iran might do with a bomb, but what everyone else might do because they think it has one. But danger doesn't exist in a vacuum. It gets used. In the United States, being tough on Iran has been a bipartisan requirement for decades. Sanctions aren't just foreign policy, they're campaign trail currency. A president who eases pressure on Tehran risks being called weak. A president who tightens the screws gets to look decisive. The actual effect on Iran's nuclear calculus? That's a secondary question. On the Iranian side, the mirror image holds. The nuclear program is a point of national pride, framed as scientific achievement, sovereignty, resistance. Any leader who compromises too much risks being labeled a sellout, someone who caved to the same Western powers that overthrew Mossadegh. When you see a leader standing at a podium talking about red lines and existential threats, remember, they're not just talking to the other country. They're talking to their own voters, their own factions, their own history.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because both sides have built entire narratives around the nuclear file, and both narratives leave out the parts that make them look bad. The American story goes something like this. A dangerous, theocratic regime is pursuing weapons of mass destruction, and only firm international pressure can stop it. It's a story of responsibility, of the global community standing guard. What gets left out? The 1953 coup, decades of intervention. The fact that the United States helped start Iran's nuclear program in the first place, back when the Shah was an ally. Iran's story is equally curated, a proud civilization punished by hypocritical powers for pursuing peaceful technology, a nation that just wants dignity and self-determination. What gets left out there? Internal crackdowns, regional proxy operations, the moments where peaceful intent looked a lot like deliberate ambiguity. Each side has a story where they're the cautious hero and the other side is the reckless villain. The truth, as usual, is messier and a lot older. So the next time a headline crosses your feed, try running it through this filter. Iran increases uranium enrichment to 60%. Sounds terrifying. But the timing matters. Was it right before a diplomatic meeting? That's leverage, not launch prep. New sanctions imposed on Iranian entities. Sounds tough, but was it an election year? That might be messaging, not strategy. Nuclear talks collapse. Sounds like a crisis. But sometimes a collapse is just a reset, both sides stepping back to recalculate before the next round. Next time you see a breaking news alert about the nuclear file, ask, is this about actual uranium, or is this about leverage, elections, and old grudges? So here's what I want you to think about. Is Iran's nuclear pursuit really about weapons, or about the memory of being overthrown and abandoned? Who gets to decide which countries can have nuclear technology and which can't? And is there any path that breaks the cycle? Or are we locked into this forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them, and the best ones might shape future episodes. In the next episode, we're leaving the Middle East again to show how these nuclear fears and regime change habits didn't just stop at Iran. We'll look at how the same Cold War logic that produced Operation Ajax helped shape the standoff over Cuba's missiles and the pressure on small countries like Jamaica to choose a side. If you want to see how a 4-day coup in Tehran connects to missile silos in Cuba and political battles in Jamaica, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.